Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to talk about a new class from MlFlow, and this class is going to help us to create and delete experiments, in essence to manage experiments, and it's going to be a kind of API that is going to help us to communicate our code with the MlFlow tracking server. Later on I am going to talk about servers, but so for now just think of this thing as just a Python class. um, this is important because so far we have been working using the same experiment, the one that is created by default for MlFlow, the one that is called default. But we want run different experiments. Maybe we are working with an image classification project, and we want to get this specific experiment called about image classification separated from I don't know, maybe a linear regression project. So let's jump into the code um, to show you how we can use this new class to create and delete projects. So the first thing I had to do is easy, just import the MlFlow client from MlFlow.tracking. I create an object from this class called client. Then, in this case, I am creating a variable called experiment name, and it's going to contain the string experiment 2. This is basically the name of the new experiment that we are going to create right now. And then I use a method from my client object called create experiment, which is going to receive the experiment name as a parameter or argument. Let's run the code to see what happens. And as we can see here, MlFlow has created a new experiment with ID 1. So the metadata says that the name is experiment 2 and the experiment ID is 1. Let's take a look at our user interface to see what happened there. So here we are. In this case, what we are seeing is the runs that we run under the default experiment. If we refresh, okay, here we have a new experiment and we don't have any run, so this is normal. Now let's try to delete this experiment too, because that's also the probably we want to do. Let's change our branch, and here we are. So the code is quite similar. Basically, in this case, I am first getting the experiment object, and this variable is going to hold metadata about the experiment itself. Why I am doing that? Well, because I need experiment ID, and yes, I can use maybe one, but I don't want to do that. I just want to get the ID. So right now we are learning another method called get experiment by name. By using this method, we are going to get metadata from the experiment name. We can also use another method called get experiment, and this one is going to receive the experiment ID. But right now, let's say that the only information that we have about that experiment is the name, which is experiment 2. Now I already have my experiment ID because, as I mentioned before, this object experiment is going to contain metadata about the project, sorry, about the experiment. So I'm just using this notation to get experiment ID and store it under this variable. And finally, I just use a method from my client called delete experiment, which is going to receive or which receives the experiment ID as a parameter. So let's delete this experiment, sorry, Python MlFlow tracking. And as we can see, we don't have the experiment ID here. Now the experiment ID of the experiment itself moved to the trash folder. So here we can see that our experiment is in this folder. So let's see what happened um, in our user interface. MlFlow user interface, and let's go here. Let's refresh this web browser, and we don't have our experiment. Um, so that's it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to show you how we can run different runs under different experiments. So for example, let's say that we want to keep working with default experiment. So we can choose that experiment to work on, or maybe we can, we want to work maybe in a different experiment, let's say under experiment 2, and we want to perform different runs under this experiment. So the next video is going to be about that. Yes, that's it. Thank you for listening to me. See you later.